Good evening. My name is Lucian J. Metellus Jr., General President of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. And tonight we're here, gathered here today, and I want to welcome all our fellow Greeks, friends, and my brothers of Alpha Phi Alpha here today for this very important town hall. Today we're going to really talk about the issues of the day, which is around what's happening in our country and how Black men can take the lead in these efforts. So today we have the pleasure and privilege of bringing the D9 fraternity presidents on board. First, I want to introduce Frater Robert Jenkins, first vice polemarch of Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity. Frater Jenkins, good to see you.
Good evening. I am Robert L. Jenkins Jr., Senior Grand Vice Polemarch for Kappa Alpha Psi. Glad to be here tonight to join the conversation.
Wonderful, wonderful. Next, we will have from Omega Psi Phi, Frater Ricky Lewis.
Good evening. Ricky Lewis, initiated Omega Psi Phi in 1981. I'm a member of Tall Tall Chapter in Compton, California. I'm the leader of the Qs. I'm the 42nd Grand Bosses of Omega Psi Phi fraternity.
Good to see you. Good to see you. Next, we'll have Frater David Turner of Phi Beta Sigma.
Good
Frater
evening.
Turner.
So excited to be engaging in this discussion. This is David Turner, International President for Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, hailing from the south side of Chicago, ready to get into this discussion and talk about Black men leading in this cycle.
All right. And last but not least, our good Frater Orlando Grant from Iota Phi Theta Fraternity Incorporated.
Good evening, everyone. I come to you. My name is Orlando Grant, 24th International Grand Polaris of Iota Phi Theta Fraternity Incorporated, founded during the Civil Rights Movement. So I find it appropriate and fitting that we are joining together, similar to what happened in the 60s, to come and have conversation and dialogue about engagement, empowerment, and hoping to engage our fellow citizens in the greatest equalizer in our system, and that is the right to vote. So thank you, Brother Metellus, and all my D9 brothers for joining us this evening.
And today we'll lead into the conversation with the five of us. And once again, my name is Lucian J. Metellus Jr., General President of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, here in this space to really talk about what Black men can do. And as the leaders of over 800,000 men initiated into fraternities of the NPHC, we thought it was important that we get together. But we have an excellent moderator tonight, an alpha man, in fact, Brother Jeff Johnson, who you've known from his work on the Civil Rights Trail, his work on the radio, on the video. And Brother Jeff Johnson, I wanted to bring you up so that we can begin the discussion around where we are as a people and what the fraternities are planning to do and what we can do to help move the mission forward. Brother Johnson, the floor is yours. I think you're on mute, Brother Johnson.
All right, there we go. Thank you, Brother GP. So I want to just frame this. I think you'd have to be under a rock if you did not know the challenges that we're facing nationally. We're clear that the Supreme Court finally gutted the Voting Rights Act that provided a level of federal oversight, primarily to southern states. But many of us who have not lived in southern states have known for 2 to 3 decades that we've seen Republican secretaries of state, and this is a nonpartisan conversation, but I'm speaking from historical fact, that there have been secretaries of states within states that have limited access and prevented access in spite of the Voting Rights Act being in place for southern states. And so while this is an elevated issue, it's not a new one. It's one that we have dealt with since prior to the Voting Rights Act. one that we have dealt with since the Voting Rights Act, and one that we're now having to deal with on a different level. Let's juxtapose that to the reality that we are seeing shifts in how Black men vote, how Black men receive information, how Black men form their political identity. And so there's not only a tremendous opportunity, but a extreme responsibility for us as members of NPHC organizations to mobilize not only our membership through all of the voting initiatives that each of our fraternities have, but think differently, in some cases reimagine how we think about the complexity of Black men in this electorate, both by generation and by region. The elevation of what we know not to be a monolith is even more complex by way of what's mobilizing men to vote, and the opportunity that we have both through our membership and through our engagement to our communities to educate, inform, and mobilize Black men in a way that's authentic, and in some cases very different than what we've done before. So I'd love to start the conversation there, and would love very briefly if each of you, in as concise a way possible, so we can get into some of the solutions to some of the challenges we're facing. If you can talk within maybe a minute about what your organization is doing leading into the midterms to engage not only the brotherhood, but men in our community towards turning out the vote. Brother Metellus, we can start with you.
Oh, yes. So as you know, as those on this call know, Alpha Phi Alpha's national program is a voteless people is a hopeless people. But now we've transformed that, where we've strategically aligned it to focus on voting men between the ages of 18 and 24, Black men specifically, because we tend to be the most underrepresented people when we talk about voter turnout, is our young Black men. So we're doing a strategic voter education campaign. The second thing that we've done is we've partnered with different organizations. I'm not going to talk specifically about which ones because they'll go too far, to focus on those districts that didn't turn out and voted like they had in the past. So we're micro-targeting districts as well. So those are the two big platforms. We also have initiatives around making sure that we engage the youth and empower them in terms of being partners in this process. So from a very high level, that's what we're doing. It's not only about voter registration, it's actually about voter education and actually providing access to voter turnout.
Thank you, brother. Brother Grant. Brother Grant, can you hear me? We'll come back to you, Brother Lewis.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, Make a Sci-Fi initiative is GOTV, Get Out to Vote, VRIM, voter registration, education, and mobilization. Very similar to the Men of Alpha. We're partnering with other organizations as well. But we also get into the data, right? So the data is public in terms of who votes and who doesn't vote. We can go precinct by precinct. So that's what we're doing. We go into the data. So we look up and say Ricky Lewis is a registered voter in XYZ precinct, and for the last 3 terms, he did not vote. We're going to find out why he didn't vote. We're going to knock on his door. We're going to give him a call. He may be disenchanted. He may not be informed. So we're just trying to really get to the macro and micro level to try to find out what's the reason you didn't vote. Maybe he works a second shift. He can't go vote. Maybe he can't vote by mail-in ballot. Maybe he doesn't have a car. So we're trying to figure out ways that we can get folks to the poll, particularly Black men, particularly young Black men. I yield.
Brother Lewis, as we prepare for another remark, can you talk about what data are you using and how easy or difficult is it?
Well, yes, it's easy data. It's public data, right? So the data is very public. Now, you got to deep dive. It's going to take some time, but with this AI system we have now, you can just plug it into the system. It will kick out who did and who didn't. And then you have to take time out to find out why those who didn't go to the polls, particularly people who hadn't voted, let's say, the last 2 or 3 times. That tells me there's something systemic there. Again, maybe the person didn't have a car. Maybe the person was out of town. Maybe he was sick. We don't know. But we try to delve into the data to find out why this person, Ricky Lewis, for the last 3 times did not go to the polls. And we're going to call him and knock on his door to find out.
Great. Thank you, brother. Brother Grant, can you chime in?
Yes, thank you very much. We are doing an initiative this year called Be in the Count. Be in the count. What be in the count means, we know that a lot of voter registration rolls are being purged. We know that a lot of folks don't know their current voters registration. We also know that there are individuals who are desiring to vote, but don't understand everything that it takes to vote, whether you need an ID, a bill, whatever. So our chapters, and one thing that we're going to be focused on, not only through the summer, not just through the midterms, but an ongoing process, is making sure that you're in the count, that you are eligible to vote. So that's going to involve us getting folks registered. If you don't know your registration status, we're going to have devices where you can log on college campuses, in our various community affairs, fairs and events, etc., so that people can check their own voter status immediately. One of the things that we're doing, we're going to be partnering with an organization that's going to educate our brothers on all the tools, assets, and resources that's going to help prepare our constituents. And our constituents are not just our brothers. They are all the people where IOTA have a footprint at and how we can best be of service to them. The second aspect about being in the count is going to make sure that we educate folks on the voting. What are the voting issues that are taking place? How are issues that are taking place, not just nationally, not just at the state level, not at your county level, but at your local levels, impacting you on a day-to-day basis? So we're going to really use the greatest resource that we have, and that's called partnership, and really get those people that are informed and educate to help inform our constituents to create a partnership together. And our final aspect of being in the count is, how do we get folks registered, educated, and to the polls? So it's not just, hey, you registered and we feel all nice and happy, and oh, we brought you to a community event where, you know, candidates are talking ideas. We want to help get folks to the polls. We're committing all of our brothers to at least take 5 people to the polls with them on voter registration day, or make sure that 5 people get registered. Go vote, whether it be through mail-in ballots. We're also making sure that we are partnering with agencies and organizations that need help, need manpower to help get folks to the poll. We're not saying who you're going to vote for. That's not our responsibility. That's not our prerogative. But we want to make sure we are making sure folks are able to get to the polls. And that's our effort. Is called Be in the Count.
Thank you. Brother Jenkins. You're on mute, brother. You got. Let's bring Brother Turner in, and
all right.
Oh, there we go.
All right. Thank you. I'm sorry about that. I love everything that I've heard from Alpha Phi Alpha and IOTA so far. But, you know, for Kappa Alpha Psi, we're doing the same. And that voter education, mobilization continues to be something that we all need to focus on. In Kappa Alpha Psi, however, today, this very week, we had our National Legislative Day here on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. We're having all of our chapters around each state organize and do the same. We're meeting with those who represent us now, who are in power, who are making these decisions about redistricting and other issues that affect our community. We understand that it's not just about the top of the ticket, that we want to make sure that our members understand and that we educate the public that it is equally as important that you focus down the ticket also. We need to make sure that we are educated about those who stand with us and those who might not be in alignment with our community when it comes to the state houses that also are making great impact on our communities.
Thank you. And I know that Brother Jenkins also appreciated what you said, Brother Lewis.
Yes,
even though he didn't
absolutely.
mention it.
Absolutely.
Brother Turner, if you could close us out on introducing what the fraternity is doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Freda Lewis gave a good start with focus on the data. We know, I share this all the time, that we look at the 2024 elections and you talk about the House flips one way or the other, really with about 3 districts and 7,000 votes. I don't share that as a partisan statement. I share that as a math statement. And so the value of the vote, the power of the vote is so important. And so one of the unique things that we're doing in Phi Beta Sigma this year is we've brought on a technology component to also support our efforts. And so we have our Phi Beta Sigma civic engine, which is powered by Ballot Ready. And so all of our chapters have access to share within their communities where individuals can look up their ballot. Where we're asking people and helping folks through our civic engine to check their registration to make sure they haven't been purged, to check their voting location, because in some precincts, in some areas, to cause that additional confusion, voting precincts have been moved and shifted around, and so your voting place has been moved. And so we've got a technology platform that we've invested in to allow our chapters to work with members of the communities that they serve to ensure that they're registered to vote, they know how to vote, they make a plan to vote, and that they're engaged on the issues that they're voting on.
Thank you all for breaking that down. I mean, I think that sets kind of a stage for how we want to have this conversation, because if we're honest, there was a lot of conversation following the last presidential election around what Black men did and didn't do. And because our turnout, one way or the other, was not at the same level as Black women, and frankly, nobody's turnout is the same as Black women. We were given a hard time. I think one of the things that we have to really talk about, and I think that this notion, Brother Lewis, around the data is incredibly important. Our dear brother Terrence Woodbury, who's at Hit Strategy, has repeatedly argued that the conversation about Black men is often framed incorrectly. And according to his analysis, Democrats have experienced a gradual erosion of support amongst Black men since the end of the Obama era, roughly 2 to 3 percentage points each cycle. And his point is not a sudden phenomenon or a single candidate issue. It reflects a longer term question about trust, responsiveness, and whether Black men feel politically seen. And so I would love to get from you all, as you're looking at this work, what is a single area that you think is important for more effectively engaging Black men than perhaps what we've done in the last 2 cycles? And Brother Metellus, because you talked about specifically targeting 18 to 24-year-olds, which is in and of itself ripe with nuances. What are some of the things that you're thinking about doing differently in this midterm cycle to engage Black men, based on some of this reality that we hear from the Brother Terrence and Hit Strategies?
So I think, so to your point, I think a few of the things that we're going to do is, one, we're going to go into the high schools where we do our mentoring programs and make sure that we're engaging those young men and educating them about the policies and procedures. The other thing too, I think that we've not always done telling the best story of why it matters. Let's take a look at what happened today. Carmelo Anthony was convicted of murder, and he did not receive a jury, I would say, and I'm saying for myself, a jury that was a jury of his peers. And those things do matter when we elect our district attorneys, when we elect our local politicians to the President of the United States. We need to make sure that young people, especially young Black men, are educated and engaged in those situations. So what we're going to do is first get into the high schools when they're turning 18, educate and empower them, to make sure that we have more barbershop talk. It's very important that we talk directly to the young men about what's affecting them. Instead of telling them why they should vote, we should be listening to what matters to them. They're worried about getting a job, like all people. They're worried about getting a job, the rising cost of things, these issues. And we've got to create a platform where we're presenting how do your local, state, and federal candidates stand on those issues. And so we're providing that information through social media, through that data analysis that Frater Lewis was talking about, so that we're micro-targeting as well, but also making sure that we're speaking to their issues. I think that whether it's true or false, I think at times Black men feel left out of the conversation when we talk about what's important to them. And so we as a fraternity are going to be keenly focused on driving those issues directly to them in places that there are. Instead of just telling them go out and vote, we're actually going to hear what they need and make sure that we address those issues by identifying those candidates and their positions on that. So I think a big part of that is where are the young people? What do they need? We kind of know what they want, but let's hear directly from them, because I think they feel like their voice is disempowered.
Let me pull this in and be a little bit more direct. Brother Lewis, as we think about how diverse Black men are, we don't all want the same things. If we're talking about age, there's nuances. If we talk about region of the country, there's nuances. And so often we're having conversations through the lens of telling brothers who they need to vote for, when they don't necessarily trust party or candidate. I'm curious how you all are thinking about that, even in some of your messaging and engagement, because what we saw in 2024 was not that Black men didn't want to talk. It was that Black men didn't feel listened to, they felt told.
Yeah, Frater Johnson, you're absolutely right. You must have been reading my mind. I was about to say Black men are more engaged in terms of being great fathers than any other ethnic group. We believe in personal responsibility. We go to church. We want to be talked to like we got some sense. When we start getting talked to condescendingly, either by the Republican side, the Democrat side, we just turn off. We say, you know what, we're going to stay home. So all we want to hear, I think, in the Black men that we've talked to, all of us, and let me say Terrence Woodbury is the GOAT in terms of data, right? So you don't get a better man in the business than he. We've spoken to him, all of us have spoken to him in terms of what he's doing. But we just want to talk openly about the issues that affect us, right? In terms of jobs, in terms of make sure we minimize this Black incarceration. You know, Freda Metella just spoke about that with the Carmela Anthony situation. So we just want to be talked to frankly, like any other ethnic group, any other group that want to be voted. When you start talking condescendingly to Black men, we decide we're just going to sit it out and we won't go to the polls at all. As we saw in 2024, 77 million people voted for President Trump, 75 million people voted for Vice President Kamala Harris, 90 million people, Frater Johnson, stayed at home. We have to find out why did 90 million people, and that's what their vote was. They voted to stay at home. Why they chose to disengage and not be involved in the process at all. And that's what we have to find out.
Well, and I think you make a good point. And so brothers Turner, Jenkins, and Grant, you all chime in as you will here. I think it's tough. I was a national youth director for the NAACP. I've done civic engagement for the better part of 20 years. And with the vehicles at our disposal to engage people who are not watching the news, who have turned off from legacy organizations, even like ours in some cases, as a trusted place for information, it makes C3 work even more difficult. And so I'm curious how you all are thinking about how you're either navigating C3 challenges, because there's only so much you can say on the C3 side, and how are you using alternative methods of engagement, either by way of platform or messenger, to reach specific Black men where they are with people they trust?
Well, I can add something quickly to that. One, taking it outside of IOTA, we have a sense of civic responsibility that we educate our brothers on, and making sure they understand that our forefathers, despite what aisle of the spectrum you may fall on, fought for rights and the responsibilities that sometimes we as brothers take for granted. Now, understanding and educating, we got to make sure that our sphere of influence understand the importance of what's going on. So Orlando's Grant, people that he touched every day, and making sure that they know, making sure your people that you are around every day know. What we are doing as an organization, I love the idea that we're going to be doing as well, is the barbershop talks. We all know that the barbershop is our safe zone for men. We go there for a haircut and a good conversation. Sometimes I see people just go there, don't get a haircut, and have great conversation. We're going to use that ourselves, not only just barbershops, but other places, whether it be cafeteria tables, at table talks at universities and schools. We're going to create a space where men could have real conversations with other men so that we can decide, okay, what is going to be in our best interest, and why should I support other folks? A lot of times, even in getting our news or information from these alternative sources, whether it be podcasts, social media, etc., we're still being fed a certain amount of information because of the great A word, which is algorithms. But we want to make sure that we step outside of our sphere and then make sure that we are informing and educating everyone about the opportunities of not voting, what happens if you do vote, what happens if you vote for certain candidates, informing and educating folks in that space where they are comfortable so they know exactly what is going to take place. And then understanding that, yes, we do live in a democracy. So yes, you may not get everything or everyone that you may want to vote for, but you have to understand the importance that you at least have to be at the table where your vote counts.
Brother Turner Jenkins.
Yeah, if I can chime in on that. I think, I came up in a time when, my mom told me this is why it's important, right? Folks died for you to have the right to vote. That was good enough. And that I went out and, right, that was my responsibility. I think as we look at our young men today, they don't not have a sense of responsibility, but we aren't talking to them, talking to their issues. I always talk about the fact that during election cycle, we talk about all the parties talk about major issues that Black men don't see themselves being talked to. There's certain issues that, as a general rule, Black men can support: reproductive rights and immigration, all those types of things. But generally across all age groups, Black men, they care about economic advancement for themselves, for their family. They care about affordable access to healthcare, education, taking care of their families. And those things just aren't addressed, to them beyond just it's your responsibility, but hey, this is what you're voting for. And so we're going to talk to Black men sort of where they are, but also talk to them about the issues that are important to them, and not just because it's a responsibility to do so. It is, right. I never diminish that, but we've got to talk to them more intellectually today than just a sense of obligation.
Yeah, I agree with you, Brother Turner, and I second that. It's not because we don't have a responsibility, and it's not because we don't honor those that have come before us. That's just not the motivator for another generation of voters, and we could have that conversation on a different panel. But Brother Jenkins, my question to you as a result of that is, the only place that I would push back on Brother Turner is that we saw the Republican Party aggressively addressing issues of economics. Now, whether the information was accurate or not is debatable. But they did, and they did it as a mechanism specifically of engaging Black men. And so, again, because our fraternities are engaging from a C3 perspective, there's only so much we can do with messaging. How do we need to think about shifting how we're talking about issues, to Brother Turner's point, so that we, to the degree that we can, are counterbalancing misinformation or a lack of information that's coming from either party? You're on mute, brother.
I think it's very important, as has already been said here tonight, for us to engage with our younger demographic. We all have younger members in our organization, so we have access to them, and it's a great resource, and we have to leverage that resource to identify what really matters to them and what would move their contemporaries inside and outside of our organizations. On Kappa Alpha Psi, to that point, we are putting our undergraduates, particularly those who are in leadership roles within our fraternity, to be the face of some of our education and mobilization campaigns, to make sure that they can identify those issues that would resonate with that demographic. I think the 18 to 24 is going to be critical. It always is. We know from the statistics that that's a demographic that often does not show up to the poll, simply because they often don't see the value in doing it. And we've got to do something. We've got to change that messaging and target them.
Brothers, this is for any of you that want to chime in. I had a debate with a brother earlier who argued me down that Black men are by and large liberal. And I'm like, man, I don't know where you're talking about. Like, I grew up in Ohio. I think that the Midwest and the South may not be MAGA conservative and may not be part of the religious right. But I also don't think they're card-carrying liberals or far left progressives. And that's not a demonization point. I just think it's a reality. As we think about this fact that we are seeing more Black men position themselves as conservative, even younger Black men, how does that impact how we have this conversation when I think that there is a really aggressive push from some of our leadership, especially on the coast, to label us as progressives, to be anti something else, as opposed to really get nuanced about what it means to be a classical conservative, which used to meant I went to church, or my grandmother went to church. I'm a fiscal conservative, and I, by and large, believe in family values. So much of this has gotten mixed up, and it's where we're losing the battle with Black men. So I'm curious where any of you like to weigh in on how we either create our messaging strategies, or how we need to think about this in ways that we haven't, as we go not just into the midterm, but into the next presidential cycle, where it's going to be even more pervasive.
And I think, go ahead. Go ahead. I apologize.
No, that's a great point, because I would say more of my personal friends are more socially conservative than progressive. And I think that is like, I understand certain parties and certain entities because you fall within a certain sphere or a certain voting block that we automatically agree or adapt to every cultural norm or perceived cultural norm. And I tell people all the time, that's just not the realities of what I deal with. But there are certain things that are important to us as African-American males that certain parties cater to, and it reflected itself in the previous election. I think we need, as a group of men, brothers, we need to start articulating what it is that we want, and let the parties come to us and determine what they can do that for us. I think a lot of times we cannot just be overgeneralized, because I think it's unfair to us, and then it just makes us feel disenfranchised, like our votes don't matter. So we need to determine that. But that's why we get back into being educated about the issues and the candidates and who is running for office, and making sure their records reflect their talking points. We cannot wait till the every other year or the presidential year to start hearing from our candidates. And if that's the only time they're talking to us, then we need to hold them accountable for that. And if they in order to engage men, you got to be with them all the time. And I hope that we start conducting ourselves in that way, to say you can't just talk to us in October and November of the election year.
Mm-hmm. And I want to Brother Metellus, please.
Yep. So I wanted to add something to that. I think it goes back to what you said in the beginning, Brother Johnson, and that we're not a monolith. Black men are not a monolith. Let's start from there. From the East Coast to the West Coast to the Midwest to the South. And being part of a fraternity, a 501c7 organization or 501c10 organization, what you begin to realize is that we are dealing with multi-generational, multi-political, multi-issue kind of men. We're not just dealing with conservative men. We have men that are very liberal at some parts of the spectrum. So they may, liberal in different spaces. As we talk about Pride Month this week, we have brothers in the fraternity that are in our fraternities that are in the LGBTQI space and the DEI space. And we also have brothers that are very conservative in the religious space as well. But one thing I think that we all agree on, regardless of where we fall in party affiliation, is we believe, one, in the right to equal access. We've lost that right through the years. Two, through the Voting Rights Acts being gutted. Two, we believe in the right that everyone should have the right to a good and fair education. We've lost that in the George Bush years. Those are some of the issues that cross common grounds. And those are the issues that we should be talking about, versus trying to bring everybody together in the same alignment. We need to really acknowledge our diversity as organizations internally, and our Black men externally. So it's more than just saying that, we want their Black men are more conservative. I would even argue the younger generation tends to lean more liberal. So I would say that it's a generational conversation, one. And two, the other part of that is, where can we come to common agreement? I think that we all feel the crushing debt of student debt loan and different things of that nature. And we need to partner around those common issues that everyone is feeling pain on, especially Black men.
Mm-hmm.
If I can add a point here, really why I think this conversation is so important. Last fall, Frater Lewis may remember this. Frater McMichael, we were in a meeting talking about Black men voting, And as we all said, the age group is that younger generation. And I don't think there was anybody in the room younger than 45 as part of this discussion. I think where our organizations have both a strength and a responsibility is when you take the five of us together, I can't think of another organization that has the reach, the influence, the regular interaction with collegiate men around the entire country. And so, again, that's why this conversation is so important. Us working together is so important because we have the constituency, we have direct access to the group that really needs to be touched, engaged, and brought into the conversation in a leadership capacity, as my Kappa frater mentioned. And so, again, that's where this conversation came from. And so I'm glad we're making this stride, and we'll be doing more of this as we go forward, working together.
Yeah, Frater Johnson, let me say something real quickly. Just think about this. Ronald Reagan will be kicked out of the Republican Party today.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that. They ran Pence out. You don't get more conservative than Pence. They want to hang him, right? So this is not our granddaddy's Republican Party. This is a whole different Frankenstein that they developed. And now they're making us believe that we're not conservative. We work more than any other ethnic group. We believe in taking care of our families, our children. We go to church more than anyone. We save our money. We pay our bills. We take care of our community. We do all those things, quote unquote, we're supposed to be conservative. What is happening now with this MAGA? That's not your granddaddy's conservative party. As I said earlier, they'll kick Bush out. They'll kick Pence out. They'll kick Cheney out. They'll kick Reagan out. So this is a Frankenstein that's happening now, this MAGA. This is not your old granddaddy's Republican Party.
No, and I agree. And I also agree with Brother Metellus. It wasn't to imply that there aren't liberal Black men.
Right.
I think the challenge is that the media would tell us we're supposed to be liberal. So liberal brothers normally find more of a welcoming place in the Democratic Party. And Black men who don't find themselves that are almost in a no man's land because they don't want to support MAGA, but they don't feel seen in places that are more liberal. So I appreciate you elevating that point of complexity, but the challenge is, how do we create space for Black men, regardless of what their leaning is, to make sure, because I think Brother Turner, you mentioned something. I think that there is an opportunity for us as Black men specifically to create space where we say, even from a complex standpoint, these are the multiple things that we care about. These are the multiple things that we want. And this is what it costs to get our vote, as opposed to painting the picture that we have to make a decision between one or two lesser evils. That often leaves us in a place where we're abdicating or acquiescing to one or the other's full agenda, as opposed to saying, here's what we want. This is how we're negotiating what it is that we want in return, and leveraging a greater level of political power.
No, I agree with that 100%. I think, the comment was made earlier. I would venture to say that most Black men are fairly moderates, right? And part of the disengagement has been that the parties, the fringes of both parties have kind of taken over, right? And so those folks who really are in the middle don't have a home, and they're staying at home. And so we do have to refocus on, hey, these are the issues that we care about. That's nice, but I don't really care so much about that. You've got to talk to us about the issues that we care about. And we really only care about our issues. We're not going all the way left or right with you on some of this other stuff. And come talk to us, at our table of the things that matter to us is exactly where we're going.
And
Yeah,
I want to add one thing to that. I'm sorry. I want to add one thing to that, Brother Johnson. I also want us to remember that in the last election, and I'm not talking about interest of party affiliation, but when it came to voting for Kamala Harris, the second largest demographic was Black men.
That's right.
Overwhelmingly. So I don't want us to paint a picture of Black men, because I think the media has pressed that out, that Black men are anti-Black women. And I want to make sure that we say this very clearly, that we're generally, Black men are pro-Black community, pro-Black progress. So if Black men come up with a plan and initiative, it should include Black women, it should include other marginalized groups, because we know that where Black men are marginalized, Black women get it double. So we also need to make sure that whatever agenda we come up with brings the whole Black family up together.
I think that that's an interesting point, brother, and one that I think that there's some tension around, because I don't think Black women have been not only the most responsible, they've been the most organized,
Yes.
they've been the most consistent.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Voting bloc that exists.
Yes.
And because of that, in many cases, they're leading in ways that Black men haven't. And so I think that there's something interesting that's happening where I agree with you that any Black man or any man of conscience is not going to create an agenda that disconnects from women. But there is a reality that I think there really needs to be a level of intentionality about what are the multiple voices of Black men and how are we hearing those things clearly, even in the process of connecting with our sisters, because often our voice gets lost in a larger collective conversation that frankly they're leading.
Well, I certainly agree that we are not, one size fit all. And there's a difference between being a social conservative and being a fiscal conservative. And we can identify that as Black men, that we might be at different points on the spectrum when it comes to that. But I think what really unites us as Black men, as Black people, is that we're all interested in seeing the advancement of Black issues and being able to identify those things that unite us, that we have common ground with, is critically important. Not everybody from the South is a social conservative. I'm born and raised from South Carolina. Yes, I grew up going to church and doing all of those traditional things, but there's a difference between being a social conservative, being a fiscal conservative. But I think where we all have common ground on, most importantly, is those issues that we believe resonate with us that will advance the Black agenda. The trick is identifying what those things are.
Mm-hmm. And frankly, recognizing that everybody, this skin folk and kinfolk, and having an understanding of how we call that out in a way that is sophisticated. Before we get out of here, brothers, because we have another half of this conversation around the mental health of Black men, I would love to hear from you literally in 30 seconds. If there's one thing that you would ask brothers and sisters that may be watching this to do in advance of this midterm, what's the one thing you would ask people to do?
If you're going to go vote, bring 2 people with you. It's that simple. There are people that don't know what you know. Sometimes I think we get caught up in this box because we're college educated, but there are people that are not following the issues and they're depending on you. So if you're responsible for voting yourself, bring 2 people to the poll with you. Get them informed.
Awesome. Thank you. Brother Turner.
Yeah, expand your reach, not just to your household, but to your entire family, your cousins, your uncles, right? All of them are going with you and all of them are talking to you, or you're talking to all of them, because you got an elevated understanding that they may not about the issues.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I say stay engaged.
I think we've got to hold each other accountable. So I interpret that as what we just heard. That is that we've got to make sure that everyone within your circle is educated on the issues, registered, mobilized, and gets to the polls.
Yeah, I'd say stay engaged, stay encouraged, and activate.
Awesome. I would say that I know that all of you are doing this, but I'm very excited, Brother Turner, about the platform that you all have developed. I think one of the most important things for our folks to do is study the ballot. Often we know one or two candidates that are on a ballot, but we don't know the judges. We don't know the ballot initiatives. If there's anything I would say people do, print out the ballot, put it around the kitchen table, talk about it with your family, make sure that they understand everything that's on that ballot so that as they go to the polls, that they're as empowered as they can be. For all of you that are watching, I have to say thank you so much to this panel of presidents, those that are leading our fraternities, and the massive numbers of both graduate and undergraduate members, not just in the work of our fraternity as members, but in the work of civic engagement. The next conversation that we're going to have is an incredibly important one. Many of you may not know that African-American men have the highest rate of suicide. We are the least polled and least engaged. And as men, as women, as they get older, they become more social. Men, as they get older, they become more isolated. There's so many things for us to talk about as it relates to our mental health, how we gain access, how we reduce stigma, and how we create solutions for brothers, both those that are well-versed in mental health and those that are still disconnected. So I'm excited about this conversation that's getting ready to happen next. Thank you so much for having this conversation, and stay tuned as we talk about this incredibly important issue of mental health and Black men.
Greetings, brothers and sisters of the Divine Nine, community members, and honored guests. Welcome to the mental health portion of this program. My name is James E. Callahan III. I'm a life member of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, and I serve on the International Mental Health Committee. I'm truly inspired by the collective vision of our presidents to magnify the impact that we have in our communities. I'm honored to moderate this conversation that strikes at the very heart of brotherhood, the wellness of our organizations, and our ability to serve. Joining me today are some mental health experts representing each of our respective fraternities. Representing Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. Born and raised in New York City, Dr. G. John Phillips earned his undergraduate degree from Johns Hopkins University before completing his medical school education at the University of Maryland and his family medicine residency at Stony Brook Medical Center. Today, he's a practicing primary care physician with over 25 years of experience, who also serves as a clinical professor and associate dean of the student affairs at the Renaissance School of Medicine. He also serves as vice chair of the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated's International Mental Health and Wellness Committee. Representing Iota Phi Theta Fraternity Incorporated, as a dedicated licensed social worker and a member of Iota Phi Theta, Johnny Gathers consistently goes above and beyond to support both his clients and the broader community through compassionate service. Beyond his direct and clinical practice, he extends his impact by participating in speaking engagements, writing for Helpful Living magazine, and hosting JG Mental Health Fridays, a YouTube platform where he shares accessible coping exercises. His extensive leadership and community dedication are further highlighted by his appointment to the Pennsylvania State Board of Social Workers, marriage and family therapists, and professional counselors. Representing Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, Dr. Ron Kennedy Bailey, a board certified psychiatrist whose 3 decade career spans clinical care, forensic practice, academic leadership, and national advocacy. He's recently been named as president-elect of the American Psychiatric Association. He currently serves as the assistant dean for health equity at Louisiana State University Health Science Center and as the psychiatric medical director of Orleans Parish Criminal Justice System. Throughout his career, his inpatient wards, courtroom, and classroom, Dr. Bailey has dedicated himself to ensuring psychiatry shapes public life by actively addressing critical issues of equity, violence, and accountability. Representing Kappa Alpha Psi, based in Birmingham, Alabama, Dr. Hernando Carter is a board-certified internal medicine physician who actively practices ambulatory, inpatient, and long-term care settings. He is a prominent health leader who shapes medical regulation and public health policy through his roles on the Alabama Board of Medical Examiners and the Alabama Subcommittee on Health. Furthermore, Dr. Carter champions health equity, literacy, and mentorship through his public speaking and weekly podcasts on his nonprofit organization, Prescriptive for Better Living. Representing Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, Brandon R. Brown, the Spring Initiative, 1991 Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity via Epsilon Chapter. Currently a member of Nu Sigma Chapter in Philadelphia. Professionally, he serves as a consultant trainer, a certified trauma specialist, and as an educator and implementation specialist for the Pennsylvania Healthy and Safe Schools initiative within Temple University's Lewis Katz School of Medicine. Demonstrating his strong commitment to leadership and service, Brother Brown also chairs the International Mental Health Committee, along with a host of other Sigma committees. Gentlemen, welcome and thank you for joining us and leading us with your expertise. Gentlemen, before we delve deep into this conversation, I think it's extremely important that we establish a common language for this portion. So when we think about Black men, men of color across the diaspora, specifically Black men in mental health, it cannot be spoken about in a vacuum. So for our dialogue, we look at the mental health to be presented as a dynamic state of emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It reflects one's ability to navigate life's universal challenges while actively managing the unique psychological weight of systemic racism, the cultural pressures of hypermasculinity, and historical trauma, among several other factors. To further anchor our conversation, we all recognize that research is replete with the empirical data that clearly indicates the disparities of mental health and wellness of Black men. In our conversation, we recognize that this is a crisis in our community, and as such, a crisis in our organization. So with respect to our depth of this topic, and to ensure that every perspective is heard, we will limit our responses for 60 seconds for each question. Outstanding. Good to see you, gentlemen. First question. In your professional opinion, why is prioritizing mental health uniquely critical within the ecosystem of historically or majority Black fraternities? Dr. G. John Phillips, would you mind starting us off?
All right, good evening, fellas. I'm gonna start first by saying it's Jadan. So just wanted to correct you because I don't want to run into you in the world and say, man, you kept messing my name up when we met. But I do think that, you know, as it was stated earlier, the issue of mental health is one that is significant. And as it was stated earlier, we as members of Divine Nine organizations have a unique place because of our standing in the community, but also because of our interaction and engagement and involvement with young men of color. So those are the areas that I find that make us a potential of us being extremely effective, because we have the ability, because of our presence, to be trusted. I think lack of trust has been a major point in people not engaging the medical system as a traditional sense in the United States because of historical biases, racism, and even just personal disrespects that people have. So I feel us as Divine Nine organizations are in a very unique space because of our placement to engage and to bring up the topic, because I'm sure, like myself, many of us can say where we grew up and the households we grew up in, we weren't really tutored or taught on how to handle our emotions, how to communicate our emotions, and then how to take those emotions and use them positively, not only in ourselves, our families, but also in our communities.
Thank you, sir. And to avoid any further confusions, I will address you as brother and by your last names. Brother Gethers, your response.
Yeah, for me, I feel as though with us as Black men, we have layers within us. And with us being within the Divine Nine organization and of us having different layers within us, like the brother said earlier, we kind of have an impact of not knowing who to trust or not knowing who to go to when it comes to expressing those different layers, which is why mental health is a big stigma in the Black community, also within men. We was told growing up that we shouldn't share our emotions. We was told growing up that we should supposed to, you know, take heed, take power, and do things the best that we can. But with us dealing with different layers within ourselves, it impacts how we move and it impacts how we do things on a daily basis. So being in a space within the Divine Nine and being amongst our brothers, we're able to kind of have the ability to talk to one another. But then there's sometimes that we need another outlet or another space to get those things out based on the layers that we have within us.
Thank you, sir. Brother Carter, your reflections.
Yes, sir, brother. Thanks for having me. I would say, first of all, there's a multi-pronged issue here. We have an issue with medical apartheid, where historically our people have experienced discrimination when interfacing with the healthcare system as a whole. There's generational trauma related to from generation to generation, people experiencing personally negative experiences, whether they're interfacing with, you know, the emergency department, whether they're interfacing with the primary care physician, what have you, because of underrepresentation in our healthcare system. And then this particularly when we talk about Black men, this concept of toxic masculinity, which is different than, you know, the traditional masculinity. Toxic masculinity says that men don't share their emotion. When you're a boy, you're told you fall down, don't cry, get up, dust yourself off, you know, etc. And so it causes us to exist in a vacuum where it's not manly or masculine to go to the doctor to get an annual physical. It's not masculine to go to the dentist or admit that you receive health care. And it certainly is not manly or masculine to receive mental health care, to go to a therapist, to talk to your primary care physician about things like anxiety, stress, depression. And so all these things kind of interface and leave us in a position where even when we need help, we don't know how to get it or where to get it from. I think our fraternities are positioned well to impact this because we come from a position of trusted messengers. So brothers who are look like them, who speak like them, who come from similar backgrounds, are breaking down the stigma and talking about mental health issues in a very transparent way and it makes it easier and puts brothers in an environment where they can ask questions, they can seek the help they need.
Thank you, sir. Brother Brown.
Good evening. So I think for me, when I think about all of our organizations, one thing that speaks true is that none of our organizations were founded with the understanding of having mental health as one of its foundations, right? So when we're talking about mental health is something that's new to our environments, to the society, because typically when we talked about mental health, we talked about it as it relates to medical. But now we're talking about personal, right? The reason why I feel that mental health should be a priority, not just in all of the fraternities, but just in Black communities and Black families in general, is that it gives us the opportunity to actually sit with things that we never had the opportunity to actually become comfortable with. So we're talking about things like around emotional intelligence. We're talking about how do you give and receive empathy. We're talking about recognizing, you know what, I'm broken, but it doesn't mean that I still can't be effective, right? So I feel that prioritizing mental health gives all of our organizations, as well as to the communities that we serve, a very unique opportunity to become whole, to recognize should they be in a path of healing or restoration or reconciliation or repair, that they get to build up their emotional intelligence vocabulary to learn how to speak, and to move away from words like it's okay, it's all right, it's fine, and actually talking in language that actually tells something. So for me, I am happy, I am excited that not only just Phi Beta Sigma, but all of the organizations have a mental health priority. And hopefully I'll get to work with you gentlemen sometime in the very near future.
I just wanted to add one more thing. I think, when we talk about mental health, I know I have an internal medicine primary care physician on here as well. The access is poor. Insurances don't regularly cover mental health services. So people say, I want to see a provider of color. Most times that provider doesn't even take insurance. The other part is, how do people engage the medical system efficiently when they have a problem? Many times people go to the emergency room or spaces that are not appropriate to maximally or most efficiently handle you. And a lot of us, unfortunately, don't go get our physical exams, which is a common place that you can begin this discussion.
And good doctor, I would have a playful conversation with you to say that would it not be possible if we learned how to sort of regulate and co-regulate, that perhaps we wouldn't have to deal with a lot of the medical conditions that require an internalist. But that's just me.
Okay, brother.
My
Brown.
counter to that would just be, even if you're taking a holistic approach, you got to know your numbers so you know if you're effective in your efforts. So I definitely, as you just said, we can work together, because I feel both sides serve a purpose, because many of us have a feeling that holistic remedies are important, and Eastern medicine, or non-traditional, if you want to call it that, is it's something that's a priority for them. So I think as a provider, you've got to be able to incorporate that in your presentation with your patients as well.
Appreciate it.
So, outstanding, gentlemen. I was going to say you did a wonderful job adhering to the time limits. However, we did get a little sidetracked, but I think you did an expert job of actually identifying some of the barriers of recognizing mental health, us focusing on our wellness, access to service, and the socialization of how we understand mental health and wellness, as well as the ability to find appropriate service. So thank you for that. Our second question, moving past awareness and into action, what does true organizational accountability look like when it comes to supporting our members with mental well-being? So if you would not mind starting us off, Brother Carter.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about this. Our Grand Pole Mark, Jimmy McMichael, came into his administration with a razor sharp focus on being accountable to the brothers in the space of overall health and wellness, but with a particular focus on mental health. The initiative that was started under him is the Are You OK initiative, where we partner with Johnson & Johnson. Initially, the program started to engage our brothers in the area of mental health, because we acknowledge that in our fraternities, we're always giving to the community. We're always working out in the community. But a lot of times we ignore ourselves for our detriment. So we started off with Are You OK? To try to pinpoint what was going on with our brothers. We would see on Facebook and Facebook groups on social media that brothers were struggling. We would sometimes, unfortunately, see that brothers had died by suicide. And so we knew that there was a cry within the fraternity to do this. So we initially surveyed the membership as a whole, and we had a great response from that. And what we found was that of course, 98% of our responses were from Black men, because we are a predominantly African-American fraternity. And what we found was that the vast majority felt that they needed more information, and they or someone in their families needed help in the area of mental health. And we're talking about upwards of 60% said that either them or someone in their household was suffering from issues with mental health, whether it be a mood disorder, whether it be substance use disorder, whether it be burnout, stress, anxiety, what have you. And so we implemented this program across all 12 provinces or regions, at all of our conferences, where we started out just having open panel discussions with health providers, mental health providers, providing resources there for the brothers. And the response was amazing. Now moving on to the next phase, where we are going to train brothers to be trusted messengers to go out into their communities to have these conversations, provide resources about mental health. So destigmatizing the conversation, first of all, showing brothers that people who look like them live in this space, but also have experienced these things. As a healthcare provider myself, I like to say, just like for the Hair Club for Men, I'm not only a spokesperson, I'm a client. So I transparently talk to brothers wherever I go about my own personal mental health challenges that I've had in the past and the way I navigated that process. And so I think, again, engaging the brothers where they are, taking a sample or a poll of what your brothers need, and then meeting them where they are and getting them the resources that they tell you that they need.
Thank you
Yeah,
so
I can
much.
piggyback off.
Very important aspect, and glad to see the work. I'm coming right to you, Brother Gathers. Come on.
All right. All right. So for us, a couple years ago, myself and another brother named Brother Victor Peoples, we actually created an initiative called TIME, which stands for Theta Men Improving Through Mental Empowerment. And those focus on mental health, financial wellness, and legal affairs, because we all know within mental health, everything runs as a system. So if one thing is affecting a particular area, it's going to affect everything else. So with us coming up with that particular initiative, the biggest highlight that came out from that particular initiative was Brotherhood Talks. Within Brotherhood Talks, that was once a month that we had just for the brothers only, within the fraternity, just to give them a space and an outlet just to talk about, different things, and even gave them a platform for them to tell us, all right, what are some things that you want to talk about in this next series? What are some things that you want to address? And we talk about it. Sometimes we had different guests come in and talk about different, things that they wanted feedback on. Also within the initiative, what we used to do was do monthly newsletters that we sent to the brothers about different ways of how to, sustain your mental health, sustain your financial ability, also sustain your legal affairs. I know our international grand players and our international grand vice, they're working on bringing that event back up in order and such, along with our community impact team. But it was a good outlet because it kind of showed us as brothers that it starts within us, and us being able to recognize that we're all in this together, but also knowing that we all actually go through the same thing. So it's best to just build each other up so we can expand it out to the community.
Thank you. Brother Brown.
So I think for me, I would look at accountability in a few ways. I would look at it with regard to education or awareness. I would look at it with regard to engagement, and then I would also look at it with regard to recognition. Right. So if we looked at it with awareness, I think, and one of the things that we always sit true with the International Mental Health Committee is that one of our primary strategies is to try to figure out how to normalize the mental health conversation within the walls of Phi Beta Sigma. With that, we also recognize that we are trying to reduce the stigma, right? So how do we go about doing that? We go about doing quarterly workshops. The committee is always trying to figure out something very new. I would invite everybody that's in this space. Sigma, currently, we are in what we call Sigma Synergy. That's when we have all of our international officers doing programming. However, we offer Mental Health Mondays for the month of June. So I will be more than happy to share that information and invite anybody that's listening to those type things, because I feel that it's literally about creating spaces where people feel comfortable either contributing or just listening. When we talk about engagement, I look at the Mental Health Committee as an entity within an entity. So we have to make sure that we are talking to not necessarily just the general board, but the Military Affairs Committee, that we're talking with Sigma Fathers, that we're working with all of the other committees, because if we're talking about normalizing, we're talking about that what we're saying, like the different types of actions or behaviors, we should be able to see in other places and spaces, right? And it's really about trying to create a culture, right? So accountability to me is like one of those, like, what does a healthy mental health culture look like within a fraternity setting or within any of our neighborhoods? And I think the last thing is when we get to recognition. Oh, and I need to forget, I shouldn't forget this. One of the things that the Mental Health Committee did create, and I'm pretty sure all of us here understand. So in Sigma, we refer to it as the Omega ceremony. And that's when we, say goodbye to someone. One of the questions that we had to ask is, for brothers that have been in the fraternity and have attended so many of these services, what has been that toll, right? So we've created something that I'm willing to share called Until We Meet Again, right? And it's really like when a brother has died within a chapter, the International Mental Health Committee, in partnership with our pastoral committee, we approach that chapter and just offer them services just with regard to how do you process this, right? We try not to get too clinical because we do have clinical. We try not to get too much into the social work, but we're really talking about how do you experience things. And the last thing that I would say around accountability is that you've got to be able to celebrate it. So within our spaces, we have something called mental health champions. And these aren't necessarily individuals that are credentialed within the mental health spaces, but these are people that have the passion and the purpose, and you see it through their movement and their ministry. So what we do is, we recognize individuals at our regional conferences, as well as we recognize individuals at our international conclave. So I think, again, when you look at accountability, it is around engagement, it's around opportunities, and it's around recognition. So thank you for the question.
Thank you, sir. Brother Phillips.
All right. Well, I think, again, I would underline everything that's been said thus far, because, again, I think fraternities are in a very unique space to handle this. From a standpoint of Omega Psi Phi, and I know it's not unique to just us. I mean, our fraternity culture, unfortunately, has been one that has been conducive to the stereotypes that lead to someone being isolated or suffering from a mental health standpoint. So one of the things that we strive to do is, how do we make this a comfortable conversation? We have a program in Omega Psi Phi called Brother, You Are On My Mind. And in that, you're encouraged every Wednesday to reach out to a brother, and it's an international challenge to reach out to a brother that you might not have spoken to, or somebody that's been on your mind, or somebody that you haven't seen, just to check in. Because unfortunately, as it was said earlier, we're seeing men as they get older, it's a lot easier and seems to be more reflexive for people to isolate. And that isolation can take a toll on you. In addition to that, we also believe that community engagement is important. Now, one of the things we follow is utilizing the national medical topic calendar, where May is Mental Health Month. So during May, all chapters within the fraternity are encouraged to host events that address mental health. We partner with other organizations in the Divine Nine and outside of the Divine Nine to put on local, regional, and national presentations to have this discussion, because I can't underline enough, as it was said earlier, that when a person feels comfortable, they feel more safe, they feel more capable and able to talk about what they're feeling. And last but not least, our Black Brother, You On My Mind, as it was said earlier, collaborates with many other entities, because mental health is not something that's standalone. It's something that unfortunately is relevant in so many other spaces. So we have to make sure when we're having issues or programming in those spaces that we take into consideration that mental health is something that's a priority. We have our national ministry and we have prayer calls that are weekly. So it gives brothers from all over the world to participate on a weekly basis through prayer. In addition to that, we try to collaborate and partner with organizations within communities that we serve that have the trust of the people. Because again, all of this information is great, but if you don't have a trusting ear, you're not going to be heard. But I think, again, by leaning in, by meeting people where they're at, whether it's how you present the information with language or the places that you are having these events, all of those things matter, because unfortunately, there is a burden to going to a bunch of Omega services. There is a burden to dealing with chronic life issues and chronic health issues, because those things, unfortunately, tend to also populate or exist in the same spaces where we're seeing these mental health challenges. So, as I said, this approach has to be multifaceted, because mental health is not a standalone issue.
Outstanding summary. Gentlemen, you've covered so much territory. As we sort of move to our culminating sorts of question, I wonder if you could, in 30 seconds, sort of just impart having an intentional frame of reference, an intentional mental health approach. How do you think that benefits your fraternity and your membership? Brother Brown?
Retention, reactivation, collegiate alumni transition, right? I think at some point in time, if we were to peel things back, and I know you said 30 seconds, I am always curious why people opt to disconnect with their particular organization. And usually it was because there was a situation or an individual. I sit in a space where if or when, because I'm going to speak this into existence, when Phi Beta Sigma does have its continuous proactive and positive mental health culture, that we will see an increase in the collegiate alumni transfers. We will see a decrease in brothers that just kind of randomly leave the fraternity, because there will be opportunities for issues and whatever not to be addressed. So for me, the impact, retention, reactivation, transfers. So yeah.
Brother Carter?
Simply put, I think it's life-saving. from the moment that we started the Are You OK campaign about 2 years ago, I can't tell you how many stories I personally heard of brothers saying that something that they learned or heard helped them or someone that they love. I've had brothers come up to me when we go around the country, presenting at different conferences, to tell me that because of the information that they learned from the campaign, they were able to help another brother who needed help, or they themselves were empowered to go seek help. People who were contemplating suicide, people who were dealing with other issues that were having just a huge impact on their family. So I think it puts us in a position of being relevant. And if things aren't relevant in people's lives, they disconnect. And so I think if you're able to have a tangible impact on brothers in the organization, then that increases the likelihood that they'll want to stay connected.
Brother Gathers.
I think for me, when it comes to our brotherhood and our collective, I think more so what needs to happen more is just a basic check-in, just checking in with each other, seeing how we're doing, see what's going on, see what's on our minds. And with doing that, that could just impact somebody to say, okay, this person understands what I'm going through, or this person actually reached out to me and I could consider this person a brother. Like one of the brothers had said earlier about retention and everything, that we do lose a lot of brothers and such because of not knowing what's going on or what's happening. So if we was to reach out to them and say like, hey, just wanted to check in with you just to see if everything's okay, that could change someone's life, and that could change the way how someone could say that, hey, this is why I joined to begin with, and this is why I need to be long lasting and sustaining in the organization. Because us as men, we do have a lot of stuff, like I just said earlier, we have a lot of layers within us, and we are involved in a lot of different ways, and sometimes we have a hard time really addressing what's really going on. So being able to just do like a simple check-in. Another aspect as well is whenever we have like information that's important and that's beneficial to everybody, don't be afraid to share it out. Don't be afraid to just if it's an article, if it's a video, don't be afraid to share it out on your social media platforms. If you want to take it to the higher ups within your organization, definitely pass it on to them so they can spread it out to the brotherhood as well. So basically those two things.
Brother Phillips, bring us home, sir.
Well, I think, we all, unless you pledge by yourself, you got line brothers, you've got chapter brothers. Those individuals have a way to speak to you, in some cases, unlike anybody else. And as you move along in life, and as they say, life starts life, and, who are the individuals that you feel comfortable with that can say, hey, are you okay? Hey, maybe you're not doing that quite right. So I think the fraternities in that space have a ability to connect with individuals. I think the other thing, as we've seen with COVID in recent years, the fraternities can provide a space of providing information. And as we've seen, information has not always been given in an accurate way. Sometimes it's misinformation. So we have a role in a space in our community where not only with our brotherhood, but many of our brothers are leaders of families or leaders of communities. And in having these conversations, and engaging them, we put them in position where they can spread this message, not only amongst their households, but to their communities. And I think, that is incredibly important because, brothers that feel engaged feel more of a positive sense of belonging. And I think our fraternities and sororities are so valuable right now because of the fundamental connection that we have and the power that connection has as far as not only educating us, but tooling us so that we're able to fight this fight. Because unfortunately, I think the one thing that we are seeing across the diaspora it is not easy in these United States of America as a person of color, and day by day, things are being taken from us. Now, we here may not feel it right away, but I'm sure we have family members, community members, and others that are experiencing the day-to-day suffering. And we have an obligation. We have an obligation to be that talented 10th, to bring that information back to the other individuals that were not fortunate to go to college or to get this information, but also to educate them on how important it is to talk about this stuff. Because how many of our families, nobody talks about family history of mental health, let alone history of cancer or other health conditions. So normalizing that conversation within families so that we can avoid an individual, I don't know what's wrong with cousin so-and-so, but they're just in a different space right now. And that person is completely checked out because they see no way of being brought back into the mainstream. And I think us as organizations have the ability not only to do it with our membership, but also to use our membership to support the communities that we reside in and serve.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think you did a wonderful job of touching base on the things that I was going to identify, us recognizing that this is a crisis issue, but also feeling buoyed by the fact that our fraternities, as well as our sororities, have a connection within its membership. So we have that platform, we have that framework. If we adopt to take on this challenge, to educate, to destigmatize, to focus on personal development, we have the opportunity to not only just improve lives or save lives, as was mentioned, but certainly then reach out beyond the chambers of our individual organizations and stretch out into our communities. So, gentlemen, as we close out, I first want to thank each and every one of you for participating. I will give you a short opportunity, 15 seconds, to establish anything that you may have missed on, but more importantly, if anyone who is within the sound of this communication should be able to reach out, touch base, or collaborate with you, what platforms would you suggest that they may be able to do? So, Brother Gathers, you get to start us off, and we'll go in reverse order.
Okay. So if anybody want to reach out to me, definitely they can reach out to me on social media. Facebook, Johnny, JOHNNIE, RM Gathers. On Instagram, JG the Mastermind. Definitely reach out on those two platforms. And then also you can follow my YouTube channel. You just type out my name, Johnny Gathers, and you can tune into JG Mental Health Fridays every Friday. There's a video that is dropping this Friday as well. So definitely check that out.
Brother Phillips.
My message would be, as a primary care doctor, go get your physical, know your numbers. I don't care if you're not taking medicine and you want to handle your health holistically. If you know your numbers, you can structure a plan that's going to address it. And knowing your numbers allows you to monitor it. Also, your primary care doctor gives you a space that if you are dealing with mental health issues, that's where the conversation can begin if you are looking at engagement with mental health specialists. As far as we have a 2nd District YouTube page for the Omega Psi Phi fraternity, and we also have a 2nd District Omega Psi Phi Facebook and Instagram page. I put my email in the chat. Please feel free to reach out, and I would love to work with any of the brethren here, because again, as we get in this stage of life, we all got to work together like we line brothers, frat brothers, because those divisions, which we may have paid more attention to in college, at this point of the game, when that man is looking at us, he don't look at us with a purple shirt or a red shirt or a brown shirt or a blue shirt. He just sees black and brown skin.
Brother Carter.
Yeah, so on our national page, Kappa Alpha Psi, 1911.com, we have an Are You OK landing page. And there we have just all sorts of resources that anybody can access in the mental health space. For me personally, I'm available via email at hcartermdpc@gmail.com. Instagram, I'm dr.dr.hernando-carter. And my YouTube channel is Prescription for Better Living, just all spelled out. But I'm always free and available to collaborate and to help anyone.
Brother Brown,
Thank
5
you.
seconds.
Thank you so much, sir. I would say I would encourage everybody to visit the mental health page on Facebook. That's PBS 1914 Mental Health. It's a Facebook page, all kinds of resources. If there's anybody that wishes to reach me directly, I would say I'm probably easiest found on all social media channels if you just put in Brandon Brown. But I would probably say LinkedIn is the easiest. And I am putting out there that the four of us will be working together very soon. So I've truly appreciated this opportunity.
Once again, thank you, gentlemen, for your time, sharing your expertise, and giving thanks to the vision and the foresight of our presidents who developed this platform for us. And I'm certain that we will utilize it to move forward, to have greater impact in our communities, addressing all civic entities. Thank you.
So we are still in the process. Right now, we will bring up the president of the National Pan-Hellenic Council, my good friend, a member of Kappa Alpha Psi, Frater Michael Kinlock. Frater Kinlock, welcome.
Thank you and good evening.
Good evening. Did you have some words to share about unity and purpose for the NPHC?
Yes, again, thank you for the opportunity to bring about a few remarks. Listening here, tonight's conversation is important because it speaks to the direct shared purpose and collective power of the Divine Nine. When we stand together, we remind the world that we are not just symbolic, we are strategic, we're powerful as well as necessary. The civics engagement has always been a part of our legacy, but our collective action must also include how we deal with each other and how we care for each other. So tonight, let us leave committed to both action and compassion, to protecting the vote, strengthening the civics engagement, and supporting the wellness of Black men, especially supporting us with regards to mental health. And so again, as we support the wellness of Black men and our families, our councils, our chapters, our communities, our churches, and our communities, most importantly, remember that we are indeed stronger together. Thank you.
Thank you, Frater Kinlock. I did want to just briefly mention that Alpha Phi Alpha's representative did have an emergency that came up. It was not able to make it for the mental health panel, but we do have great initiatives going around mental health because that's a personal passion of mine about the safety and concern of our members and the community in general. So we'll be putting more information on that. But as we come to a close, I did want to bring back our fellow presidents for closing remarks. If we can elevate our the presidents of the fraternities that are still with us. Some had other conflicts, but we do have three of the great five still here with us. And I wanted to first give our good friend Ricky Lewis the first closing word. Frater Lewis, did you have any closing comments?
Yeah, first I want to thank you. Thank you, Brother President. Thank you for your vision to bring us all together. Kudos to you for your vision. Kudos you for your leadership. We certainly thank President Turner. We thank all the fraternities for being on, President Grant. Certainly appreciate everybody being on tonight. Certainly want to thank Jeff Johnson for his moderating. He did an outstanding job. So, brothers, thank you. Good StreamYard tonight. Good information shared. Hopefully our members will. I got a lot of texts in here from my members joining in. So again, thank you for all you do. We continue to encourage all of our members to self-care. We have a lot of work to do, so let's take care of ourselves. Let's hydrate. Let's exercise. Let's meditate. Let's yoga. Let's go for a walk. Listen to great music, because this is going to be a marathon, and we need everybody healthy for this marathon. So again, appreciate the opportunity to be on tonight. I thought it was very successful. Did a great job. I yield back to you, Brother President.
All right, and I'll get to introduce my. I want to just let everyone know that's still here with us and in the chat that we are fraternity brothers in our own fraternities, but I think we're brothers in a closer sense than most people can understand.
Yeah.
And we have sisters in our Divine Nine leadership that I'll give a shout out to at the end. But I wanted to turn it over to my good friend, David Turner, Frater Turner, International President of Phi Beta Sigma. What's your closing remarks?
Yeah, I'm just happy to see us come together on this issue. When we talked about this initially, we talked really about the voter side of it, but I'm so glad that we added the mental health component, because so often we talk about what we need from our fraternity members, our responsibilities as men, the things we've got to do for our communities, for others. But it's also so important to add on to that, to make sure we're also focused on the physical, emotional, and mental well-being of our members as we ask them for so much, to take on so much on their shoulders for our communities, the communities that we serve. And so really just, again, happy to have made it to this point, and looking forward to the broader work that we plan to do together as we move forward.
And thank you, Frater Turner. And I want to just say first, let's give a shout out to everyone in the chat, everyone that stayed with us to hear this program. I want to thank each and every one of you. If we can bring all three back on the screen, it's a great opportunity for us to just really talk as we want to first shout out our chair, our fearless leader of the Council of Presidents, Dr. Stacy N.C. Grant, a member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. We have another Turner, Cheryl Turner of Delta Sigma Theta. That's all with us. Donna Anthony Reed of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. And of course, Marika Harris of Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated, who always lean in and are great support for the things that we want to accomplish. I guess my closing comments will be very brief, but very important. As Frater Lewis said, this is going to be a long marathon. It is time for us as a people to come up with our 2028 project agenda. We need our own Project 2028 agenda, where we're really focused in on the issues that are affecting us as a people. That means that we've got to pull from different people in different spaces. We've got to pull from our Caribbean brothers and sisters, our LGBTQIA plus brothers and sisters. Yes, we can say Happy Pride Month to them, and we just need to make sure that we're pulling in as many people as possible, because they are in literal times. Not since lynching have we seen this attack on Black men like we've seen today. And so we need each other to be in a space where we're supporting each and every one, so that we can make sure that we are successful in making sure our agenda is carried out. So there can be no division amongst us, amongst the five fraternities. We have to be united in a cause and mission, and all 9 organizations, the Black Church, the NAACP, the Urban League, we all have to come together. And so for us, this was an opportunity. I want to thank the other fraternity presidents, because I know when we started talking about this, I know that I kept pushing it, but I really thought it was important for us to be together and work together and push the agenda forward. So I want to thank each and every one of you that stayed in for the long haul. This will not be the last conversation as Council of Presidents. I know Dr. Grant, our chair, is planning for a D9 situation room. More information to come about that. But I look forward to working with each and every one of you. I look forward to asking the question before you both go off. How are you feeling, my brothers? Are you good? Making sure that we're there for each other in and out of these letters. So, brothers, I want to thank you for being here. We've got a lot of work to do. We've got to turn out this vote like crazy, and we've got to make sure that our interests are protected. So thank you so much, my fraters, and you have a great night.